DeepSeek V4 Pro, GPT-5.6 Sol, and Grok 4.5 all claim they can reason through a codebase better than the other two. So I put their actual published numbers side by side to see who's telling the truth. The biggest surprise isn't which one wins, it's that DeepSeek's official Terminal Bench 2.1 score of 87.9 comes within a single point of GPT-5.6 Sol's 88.8 at roughly a tenth of the price. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which one deserves your API key and which one is quietly winning on a number nobody puts in their launch tweet. Let's start with the number that decides whether any of this is affordable at scale. DeepSeek V4 Pro charges $0.435 per million input tokens and $0.87 per million output tokens. GPT-5.6 Sol charges a $5 in and $30 out. Grok 4.5 sits in between at $2 in and $6 out. Do the math on that gap. DeepSeek is over 10 times cheaper than GPT-5.6 Sol on input tokens and on output tokens. The gap widens to roughly 34 times. That's not a rounding difference. That's the kind of spread that changes whether a product is profitable to run. Cash pricing tells the same story. DeepSeek's cash hit rate drops all the way to 0.003625 per million tokens, a 99.2% discount. GPT-5.6 Sol's cash discount lands at 90%, bringing it to $0.50. Grok's cash discount is 85%, landing at 0.30 $. DeepSeek isn't just cheaper on the sticker price, it's cheaper on every single pricing lever available. Here's what that looks like at real volume. According to the official pricing pages, run 500 million input tokens in a month, and DeepSeek V4 Pro costs you about $217.50. Run that same 500 million tokens through GPT 5.6 Sol, and you're paying around $2,500. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. DeepSeek V4 Pro takes this test decisively. There's no asterisk here, no, well, it depends on your provider. The official numbers are public and the gap is enormous. That's not a difference you shrug off. That's the difference between a side project and a line item that needs approval from finance. My name is Brian, and I spend my time going through official release tables, independent verification sites like Vellum and Artificial Analysis, and community benchmarks so you don't have to untangle vendor marketing from what these models actually do. Cost doesn't matter if the model can't actually do the job, so let's look at whether DeepSeek's price advantage survives contact with real coding work. On Terminal Bench 2.1, the benchmark that tests real agentic coding tasks rather than toy problems, GPT 5.6 Sol scores 88.8% in its base configuration and 91.9% in its ultra mode, according to official docs. DeepSeek V4 Pro comes in at 87.9%. Grok 4.5 trails at 83.3%. That's a close race at the top. DeepSeek is within a single point of GPT 5.6 Sol's base score. This benchmark grades models on real GitHub issues, and here GPT 5.6 Sol pulls way ahead at 96.2%, independently verified by Vellum. DeepSeek's max variant scores 80.6%. Grok 4.5's Pro variant scores 64.7% on SW Bench Pro. That's not a photo finish anymore, that's a real gap, and it's decisive in GPT 5.6 Sol's favor. Independent rankings back this up. On BenchLM's leaderboard of 218 models, GPT 5.6 Sol ranks 4th overall with a score of 82.0. Grok 4.5 ranks 10th at 75.4. DeepSeek doesn't have a comparable published figure on that leaderboard. Now here's the part that matters most, and it's community reported but unverified rather than official. Kilo's flow graph test, a real-world coding evaluation, scored DeepSeek V4 Pro at 77 out of 100, sitting between Claude Opus 4.7 at 91 and Kimi K2.6 at 68. The concerning part isn't the score itself, it's that DeepSeek's TypeScript build actually failed this test despite passing its own internal test suite. GPT-5.6 Sol wins this test. DeepSeek's terminal bench number is genuinely close, but the SWE bench gap and that flow graph failure both point the same direction. But SWE bench verified tells a very different story. That's a meaningful gap between what a model claims about itself and what happens when you actually try to ship the code it wrote. A model that reasons well but takes forever to respond breaks the flow of actually working with it. So let's talk throughput. GPT 5.6 Sol's ultra-fast tier claims up to 750 tokens per second, which would be roughly 14 times faster than its standard mode. That number comes directly from OpenAI and Cerebras's own announcement, so it's vendor-claimed, not independently verified, by a third party yet. Grok 4.5 claims 80 tokens per second, also vendor-claimed. So on paper, GPT 5.6 Sol wins this test by a wide margin, if that 750 token figure holds up once outside labs get their hands on it. I'm giving it the win here because it's the headline claim, but I want to flag that it's the least verified number in this entire comparison. There's a wrinkle worth mentioning too. DeepSeek's actual speed varies wildly depending on which provider you're running it through. Fireworks hits 167.1 tokens per second, while Deep Infra's FP4 configuration only manages 33. Together, .ai has the lowest time to first token at 0.99 seconds. If you're deploying DeepSeek yourself, which provider you pick genuinely changes your experience. DeepSeek V4 Pro measures 89.7 tokens per second in its reasoning max mode, and this is the one number in this whole speed test that's independently measured by artificial analysis. Stick with me, because the last 4 tests are where this decision actually flips. Losing track of a big codebase halfway through a task is one of the most annoying failure modes in this category, so context size matters. DeepSeek V4 Pro and GPT 5.6 Sol are effectively tied here. DeepSeek offers 1,048,576 tokens of context, right around 1 million. GPT 5.6 Sol offers $1.05 million. Grok 4.5 trails at 500,000 tokens, half of what the other two provide. But context window isn't the whole story. Max output tokens is where DeepSeek separates itself. DeepSeek V4 Pro supports up to 384,000 tokens of output in a single response, according to official docs. Neither GPT 5.6 Sol nor Grok 4.5 publish a comparable figure for max output. That means if you're generating a massive file or doing a full repo rewrite in one pass, DeepSeek is the only one of the three with a documented ceiling that high. I'm calling context a tie between DeepSeek and GPT 5.6 Sol, but DeepSeek takes this test overall because of that output ceiling. Nobody else has published a number that competes with it. For anyone working with large repositories, that's a real limitation on Grok's side. The best model on paper doesn't matter if you can't actually get it running the way your team needs to. DeepSeek V4 Pro is MIT licensed, open weights, the only one of the three you can self-host. It's compatible with OpenAI and Anthropic-style APIs, and it works with codex adaptations too. GPT 5.6, Sol, and Grok 4.5 are both proprietary and closed. GPT 5.6 Sol is available through ChatGPT, Codex, and the API. Grok 4.5 is confined to xAI's own API and Grok build. It's not on Bedrock, it's not on Azure. On modality, GPT 5.6, Sol pulls ahead. It's the only one of the three that accepts image input alongside text. DeepSeek and Grok are both text-only right now, but deployment reach and licensing flexibility go to DeepSeek. Open weights mean no vendor lock-in, the ability to fine-tune, and the freedom to run it wherever your infrastructure lives. That's a bigger structural advantage than one modality feature, so DeepSeek V4 Pro takes this test overall. DeepSeek V4 Pro wins on cost by an enormous margin, 10 to 34 times cheaper than GPT 5.6 Sol, depending on which token type you're counting. And it backs that up with open MIT licensed weights and the biggest max output ceiling of the three at 384,000 tokens. Now, DeepSeek V4 Pro wins on cost by an enormous margin, 10 to 34 times cheaper than GPT 5.6 Sol, depending on which token type you're counting. And it backs that up with open MIT licensed weights and the biggest max output ceiling of the three at 384,000 tokens. Grok 4.5 doesn't win any test outright in this comparison, but it claims roughly double the token efficiency of its rivals according to XAI, and it actually leads on SWE Marathon at 29.0%, ahead of both Claude Opus 4.8 and Fable. Its real limitation is that 500,000 token context window, half of what the other two offer. DeepSeek V4 Pro is the winner here, taking 3 of the 5 tests to GPT-5.6 Sol's 2 with 0 ties. For most people, the decisive reason is simple. DeepSeek's Terminal Bench 2.1 score of 87.9 sits within 1 point of GPT 5.6, Sol's base score of 88.8 at a fraction of the cost. Even if GPT 5.6 Sol is genuinely 10% better on some real-world coding tasks, and the SWE bench gap suggests it might be, it is not 10 times better, let alone 34 times better. If you need the absolute best agentic coding performance and budget genuinely isn't a factor, GPT 5.6 Sol is your pick. If you want a mid-priced option with strong token efficiency and don't need the largest context window, Grok 4.5 is worth a look. But for almost everyone reading a price sheet before they commit, DeepSeek V4 Pro is the default. Here's what the marketing never puts front and center. DeepSeek's headline 87.9 terminal bench score comes from its own official release table. That's vendor claimed. GPT 5.6 Sol's 88.8 is independently verified by Vellum, and when Kilo actually ran DeepSeek through a real-world coding test, it scored 77 out of 100 and failed a TypeScript build despite passing its own internal test suite. The price gap is real, but nearly matches on paper, and performs identically in production are 2 different claims, and only one of them has independent verification behind it. If you want to see how these 3 actually behave once you push them into a live agent loop instead of a spec sheet, that's the next video worth watching.